"They're coming," was what the old man shouted as he entered into the castle city. "They're coming! They're coming!" There was such a raw intensity to his voice. It was from the guttural parts, the subterranean core of the humanity where we store our maledictions, that came out this cry. "They're coming! They're coming!" He quickly charged through the marketplace, filled with people selling and goods and wares and visiting. The village was happy that morning, blissfully unaware of the warning that the old man was crying out. "They're coming! They're coming! Why are you just standing there? Why are you just taking it in? You're being invaded! Don't you realize it?" He said this and similar warnings as he went from group to group, family to family, individual to individual, until finally one of the town's guards climbed up to the top of one of the 4 towers of the walls of the city and looked out and saw a barren meadow filled with butterflies and birds, but no armies, no invaders. The man made pleas again and again and again, but no one heard him. They laughed, dismissed him as a madman from the woods. They even pointed to his ancient armor, filled with strange runes and insignias of armies long ago that had long since passed. Deflated and defeated, the messenger with his warning slumped down like a tree in fall and slumped through the streets, out of the city gates and to the woods, unaware that he was being watched by a boy. The boy watched the old man leave, turning into a speck in the horizon, and then retreated to his aunt and uncle's cottage. Without a word, he entered into his room, closed the door, put a chair over the door, knelt to the ground, and knocked 3 times on one of the floorboards, and then an opening was made by a mechanical device responding to his coat, and the young man pulled out a helmet, a sword, a shield, a belt, boots, and he studied the ancient, strange insignias, the runes that were identical to the old man's armors that gave the warning. As if waiting for it to be filled and come alive, the boy looked at this armor and then put it all back, closed the surface, relocked it, and then heard his aunt speak about him to his uncle. "You know, I wish my brother hadn't passed away so fast, so quickly. He has too many questions. I'm afraid that old man with that get-up and that armor may have caused him to be back to those old questions that we did work so hard to eliminate." "It'll pass," the uncle said. "It'll pass." But it didn't. The next day on Sunday, when the whole town was asleep, and that there was only the eye of the needle, the small entrance of the village, a door opened, and the boy, clad in ancient armor, ill-fitting to him, clunked and clankered around him as he made his way to the field. And there he stood, surrounded by void, nothing. And he closed his eyes and he heard the old man's warning again and again, and then he opened his eyes. And there he saw a horse clip-clop in front of him. And then behind the horse was a white tent. And inside that white tent was a smithy of golden orange embers burning as it forged new swords and new armors. A hammer was sounded. And behind that, another tent, and another tent, and another tent. More horses. More soldiers that appeared within a blink of an eye, clad in battle-ready armaments, swords drawn. And they were all muttering to each other. And then he looked at the soldier appearing from nowhere, now in the hundreds. And the soldier body was misshapen, slim and slender in places human beings should not be, and tall and gaunt in other places where it was unusual. And finally, under the visor, at first shadowed, his eyes adjusted. He saw that the face itself was not human at all, but almost reptilian, full of dark green and lime scales, a hook instead of a nose. And its face ended almost as if it was its own blade. The soldier that the boy was staring at, red eyes met his and stopped, and then whispered to a nearby soldier. "Look," it whispered, with its claw-like fingers that looked like daggers. "The boy sees! The boy sees! Come! Come! The boy sees!" Soon, soldiers, dropping their drills and their preparations, formed a circle around the boy. And as if a stranglehold of the circle grew tighter and tighter around him. "The boy knows! The boy knows! He sees! He knows!" And they drew their swords. And almost, maybe, he could trace a thin smile of delight on these lizard guards. They drew closer and closer. The boy clutched nervously and with shakiness his father's defunct sword, and pull it, dull for years of misuse and forgetfulness, was now just a blunt object, but could not defend itself against the now swarm of lizard men that were coming closer and closer and closer to him. And suddenly there was a silence, a break before the storm, before the violence. And behind the soldiers, a human's voice cried, "Elohim!" and then shouted, "Emmanuel!" And suddenly, as if a door had been opened from the stainless steel sky that hung over above, a brilliant and bold light of an unearthly color showered down and struck the ground that the boy was standing on. The words cried out again, "Emmanuel," as if a final sweep, and the light engulfed and swallowed up all of the soldiers. Burned instantly, as if a tender vegetable caught up by snatches of a campfire, singed and disappeared within the brilliant light, and then the light vanished. The firmaments, the armaments, the horsemen, the cavalry, the smithies, the tents, the swords, all were gone. Nothing but ash on the ground of the meadow. The only figure remaining was that of the old man, and the boy. The old man walked over to the boy and said, "Are you all right?" What? What? What's going on? Who was that? What? Why are you dressed like my father? What? You have a lot of questions, and I'd be willing to answer them. Just so you know, every question you have will be an answer that will beget another question. If you're patient, I will try to give you as much wisdom as I can about what is going on. An hour later, they are in the old man's hut. A modest cottage fit for an Einzelgänger on the outskirts of the castle city. A broth with vegetables was bubbling, soon to be eaten. The boy, wrapped in a blanket, drinking a mug of tea, and the old man began to answer his questions. Who are those creatures? They're invisible creatures. Creatures that can only be seen if you believe they exist. If you do not believe they exist, they are quite invisible and still just as deadly. What do they want? Our annihilation, complete and total destruction. Next question. Are you a wizard? No. Are you magical? No. I only know of magic. I am not magic. What magical word did you use? Emmanuel. Means God is with us. I called out God's name, and that is what took care of our lizards. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes almost everything happens when you use his name. Is his name magic? No. I'm just gaining his attention. Let me show you. The old man looked down and then cried out the boy's name. The boy stood alert. What is it? That's what I did on the meadow today. But instead of addressing you, I addressed him. Was my father a soldier like you? Yes, I recognize his armor. He was one of the best. He walked with God. Sometimes I wish I could be that close to our Lord and Defender as your father was. Could you show me more of what it means to be a soldier? Absolutely. But first we need to get you home. The boy and the old man came back to the castle city. People saw that there was actually a strange, wordless change that had taken place in the boy. Something was inside of him now. A purpose, a driving mission that they could not put their finger on. They saw the old man, and some gave a mocking shout. Are they coming again? Are they coming? Yes, they are. They are coming. The boy added, they're not coming, they're here. There is a war. His aunt suddenly met him in the courtyard of the town. What are you doing? Why are you dressed like your father? Who is this man? What have you done to him? He's done nothing to me. I've come to tell you, though, that I love you. And there is a war. If you enjoyed what you heard, like, share, subscribe. Have a good day.